Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
Eric, I have a question for you.
Yes?
Do you read Sutter Kane?
I don't, but I do have one of the Sutter Kane books as my desktop background on my computer.
Do you know why you don't read Sutter Kane?
Because it's not real?
Because he's not a real person, and he didn't write any books, which is important to mention, because that will factor into a point I'm going to make a little bit later about how this could have been a brilliant metafiction and didn't actually go there.
Cool. Should we tell anybody what we're talking about?
Today, well, if they looked at the title of the video they clicked on, they'll know. But today,
I don't know about you, but I like to go to Geekvolution and just click a video at random and see what happens.
And then they get 53 seconds in and they go, why haven't these bozos told us what I'm listening to? Today, we're talking about a very strange and unusual John Carpenter film called In the Mouth of Madness that came out in the year 1994. And this is a movie I had never heard of. I didn't know this existed. And Eric, and I love it when Eric does this, because it always turns out to actually be a thing that I'm glad I watched. Even if the first viewing, I thought maybe I was going as insane as the person in the film. Eric was like, Cap, you've got to watch this movie, and I'm going to tell you nothing about it, and I want you to do no research whatsoever, and just watch this movie.
The trailer.
I didn't watch anything about it. I had no idea. I didn't know that this movie was, I cringe when I say old about a thing that came out in 1994, but I didn't realize that this was, this old. And I start, so I didn't even know the date when I started watching it. And, all of a sudden, I'm watching the opening credits, and all these actors that I love, their names start popping up, and I was like, this must be why Eric wanted me to watch this movie. And then I saw it, and then I was like, oh, it's a crazy movie about a person who may or may not actually be a figment of the writer's imagination, and that's why I'm watching this movie. Okay.
No, it's just front-loaded with actors you love.
More bookended, really.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true, because they... does David Warner come back?
David Warner and John Glover... Well, John Glover kills him at the end.
Oh, that's right. I knew John Glover came back. I couldn't remember if David Warner actually comes back.
They both do, yeah, because David Warner is the doctor that's interviewing...
Oh, because yeah,
him,
of course.
And remember that's where that's where they pay off, do you read Sutter Kane again? And right at the end he says, and this is the thing, so many things I did not pick up on until a second viewing. Right at the very end he says, do you read Sutter Kane? And that's a big reveal as to why he's acting like such an insane person. Because at the beginning you're
Other than being John Glover.
Well, that's just him and David Warner both being completely typecast. John Glover in this movie is playing the exact same role he played in Batman and Robin.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that man was a scientist. This man runs an insane asylum.
Yes, but temperament and lack of he's playing the same character.
Yeah.
I want somebody to write a fan fiction where this guy ends up being the father of Sylar.
That makes sense.
That's an aside.
At this point, I bet you half your audience doesn't know who Sylar is.
Sylar from Heroes.
I bet you half your audience doesn't know what Heroes is.
That
has been forgotten by the sands of time.
Which is hilarious because it had a miniseries that like 5 people watched last season.
I watched the first episode and it was awful.
I watched all of it but the last episode because I just haven't gotten around to finally watching that because it was not good. I'm not gonna say awful, not good. It's what I would have expected a season 5 of that show to look like.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. But anyway, we digress.
Should we try and explain the plot of this, or should we just say, if you want to listen to this video, do your homework and go watch this movie? Because it's going to be hard to summarize.
We can explain it a little bit. Do you want to attempt to summarize it without also analyzing it at the same time?
Yeah.
Because I think that's harder, but yes, we can do that.
With the caveat that by the time we get to the third act, certain things become very interpretation-driven.
Yes, I believe the entire third act is that way. But then it ends up being that the entire movie is that way.
Well, yeah. But I mean, in just a general summary, The third act makes things about the rest of the movie all interpretive. And so anyways,
yeah.
Sam Neill plays John Trent, who is an insurance investigator. He's the guy that investigates potential fraud claims for insurance companies. He is put on the job to find Sutter Kane, who is a very famous writer whose fiction is kind of a combination of H.P. Lovecraft and Stephen King. And he's the biggest selling horror writer and possibly maybe writer of all time. And he's gone missing. No one knows where he is. And so John Trent is sent with Linda Stiles, who is Sutter Kane's editor.
And
they set off to go find Sutter.
And we should mention that, importantly, before that happens, we also know that some of Sutter Kane's fans seem to be turning into lunatics.
They're going crazy.
Yeah. And who is it that tries to kill John Trent in the first place? Is it his publicist
it's his agent?
His agent.
There's a guy. There's a crazy guy with an axe who busts into the coffee house where John Trent is actually getting the job, and just doesn't even. I was gonna say tries to kill John. He doesn't. He just leans in and says, "Do you read Sutter Kane?"
And I can't remember if is he also the first person who says he sees you?
I think so.
Or does that happen later? Because that is a motif that I think is supposed to connect all of this together and make you wonder how much of that is real.
Yeah, well, and he also has really cool pupils where he has two pupils that are like right next to each other, so his pupils are like a figure eight, which is just a weird little detail that never comes back in any way.
I think I'm wrong. I don't think he does say that. It's not in my notes. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, well, and I guess I should also note, anytime there's a close-up on anyone, they have blue eyes. Because that's important.
Blue eyes are
that's
creepy.
Important. That's a plot point.
Wait, it is?
Because Sutter Kane's favorite color is blue.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that. Cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird details like that like it's easy to miss some of those.
Yeah. Every time there's a close-up on someone, their eyes are blue. So even if their eyes aren't normally blue, if there's a close-up, they have contacts in to make their eyes blue.
Oh no, the first person who says "Can you see?" He can see you is the guy at the bookstore.
Oh yeah, that one's really creepy, and like, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Because he's just, I don't know.
Sorry.
Okay, so
go
anyways,
ahead.
John and Linda go to Hobb's End. They find Hobb's End, which is
because of a map from the covers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really hard to try and summarize this.
But I think it's important to mention the book covers and that there's a map.
Yes. So the book covers all have these weird red lines on them, and John realizes that he thinks that there might be like a puzzle here, and so he cuts along the lines with the most precise detail to bizarre, like minor contours, and they all fit together. And they make a map with a distinct, this is where, location. So they go to where that is, which it's not supposed to exist, but then Linda also says that they had intended to make Sutter Kane disappear, and they had intended to have a fake Hobbs End, but that then he really disappeared, and this is not that place.
It's more ambiguous than that, though. She doesn't say that there was supposed to be a fake Hobbs End. They say that there was a publicity stunt, and she doesn't elaborate further on what exactly it was. She's like, there's a publicity stunt, but then he disappeared,
and John is the one who makes
he makes that assumption, but she does say that there was a publicity stunt and that he was supposed to disappear, but we don't know what their plan was.
Yeah. No, I was blending John's statement of find it and win a Sutter Kane lunchbox.
Yeah,
because that's what you want from a famous horror writer is a lunchbox. So they go to the town.
And that guy is really good at reading people.
He's amazing at reading people. But so they kind of explore the town, and everything in the town is exactly as it is in the books. Hobbs End is kind of like, if you're a Stephen King writer, it's kind of like Castle Rock, or in Lovecraft, it would be Arkham, Massachusetts. It is a town that reoccurs in most, if not all, of Sutter Kane's books, and where like a lot of the weird things take place. And all of the architecture is exactly...
Although I would make the case that you have to know something about some of those other horror writers and that they have that same town motif to really get that, because he's only reading from the Hobbs End book in explaining what Hobbs End is supposed to look like, and that's somewhat problematic.
Okay, that's fair.
Not a big deal, but as you said that, I was like, oh, I didn't make that leap. I was like, why aren't the other books important?
Yeah, no, I assumed that they were, but that's just being a Lovecraft and Stephen King guy, I guess.
Yeah. It should have been that.
So
I don't think it is quite that.
Well, no, because doesn't the old woman, they reference her from a different book. That's not from Hobbs End. That's from a different book, I believe.
Okay, you might be right about that.
Anyways, so
sorry.
So John,
these are things we're going to have no reason to ever bring up anywhere else outside of this summary.
John and Linda kind of go around the town with the book almost, and like he mentions, like he's like, I'm reading this like it's a tour guide. Like he's reading the history of this church that is there, and some of the people they recognize from the books, and some of it very specifically only Linda recognizes because she's read the new book. Then, How does Linda get there? Is she drawn there? Or does she just go? She goes the night, that's right.
Yeah, that's not made super clear.
Well, no. She goes in the morning, but she gets there at night. There's a really bad continuity because they specifically just woke up. And then she takes the car, and then we see her pull up to the church at night. And
there's also that really, just before that happens, there's that really bizarre cut. Did you catch this, and tell me if this was in the version you saw, because I found like a streaming version of this online somewhere and wondered if somebody cut this wrong. There's this weird cut where they're standing in the lobby talking to the old woman, and all of a sudden they're in their hotel room, but it cuts from a close-up of John to a close-up of John, and it's the most jarring transition I've ever seen between scenes.
It didn't stand out to me.
Okay.
So I'm going... I don't know.
It's not important, but I just thought it was really weird.
I have the...
It seemed like there was a scene missing.
I'm trying to like think of the scene now, because it's them, they're arguing in the room, and then he's downstairs talking to the old lady. And her husband's chained up next to her underneath the...
Well, this is actually before that. This is when they first get there.
Oh, when they first get there?
Yeah, when they first get there, and they're talking in the lobby, and then they meet the woman, and they cut. Then suddenly we cut to them in the bedroom, and he's trying to explain how he thinks that it's all a ruse and a setup, and then that's when he's like, "See, there should be this church out this window," and then she's like, "No, actually, if you read the books, it's out this window." And it's the transition between those scenes.
Right.
Anyway.
That must just been a weird thing in the cut in the version you saw.
That was that was a really cool reveal, I thought, with the church.
That it's out the other window?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. So she comes back, and there's this whole... She keeps saying, "I'm losing me."
Yeah.
And she's kind of becoming crazier, and we kind of have had hints of this earlier. She tries to kiss him for no reason, which is a thing that I really like, but I also feel is a little too subtle. I feel like people watching the movie might think that she's just like trying to kiss him and think that doesn't make sense. But
I thought that. I think you're supposed to think that, and they at least paid it off.
Yeah, they're having this big argument, and she just tries to kiss him.
Because later on when they're in the car and she has gone full on crazy, she tries to do it again, which makes you...
And she says this is what the readers want.
Yeah, and then retroactively, if you're paying attention, you should think, okay, he was writing her that way back then. But we haven't gotten to what I'm talking about yet.
Yeah. So then John finally meets Sutter Kane, and Sutter Kane reveals to him that he started as a writer, but then he realized that the things that he were writing are real. They're like kind of like locked away in like another dimension, and that things work on a belief structure, and there are more people that believe or that read Sutter Kane than read the Bible.
Well,
and
importantly,
importantly,
he says more people believe in my work than in the Bible.
Yeah, there's a weird distinction between like reading and being a fan of and believing in.
Yeah. I wrote a whole paragraph about that in my notes where I was like, wait a minute, the ratio, this is what I wrote. I said, the ratio of people who bought and read the book and believe in it like they can't tell the difference between reality and fiction cannot be 1-to-1.
But so he talks about how there are more people that believe in his writing than believe in the Bible. And therefore, reality is now shifting and altering to be the books. And that these creatures are coming through. And that John is now tasked with taking the manuscript back to his aid, or to the publishing house, and that the book is going to get published and everyone's going to read it, and that's the final straw for all of this chaos to happen. And then, I mean, I could kind of skip. There's a bunch of stuff happens in between, but it's kind of just him traveling back. I don't know if anything really important happens.
It's kind of just like shock factor messing with you, making you wonder what's really happening and what's really not. There's, importantly, just before he leaves for the trip, when he's reading the books, he's had a couple of like dream sequences that are like false wake-ups, and then he has the same thing that happens again on the bus. And I think that's supposed to be important, but we'll talk about it because I don't know what the point of it is. But he like wakes up twice, and then he's on the bus and he wakes up twice again.
Well, the bus one is important, except I don't think he should have woken up twice. Because well, and I guess I didn't fully explain this. There's also an implication that John does not exist. That right. John has always been a character being written. And it's intentionally ambiguous whether he is someone who has been pulled into a fictional world or if he is a fictional being from the beginning of the film when we first see him.
Which would kind of imply that everybody is fictional in the first place, maybe.
Or, well, at least certain people are fictional.
I'm not sure. I feel like there's a potential read that the entire universe you were looking at was written from the beginning, and that Sutter Kane just wrote himself into his own story. But I don't.
That's possible.
But
yeah.
I don't know. By the end,
anyways,
I feel like this is a movie that almost any read is a plausible read.
Oh, absolutely. Which is both part of the charm of the film and also something that doesn't exactly work about the film.
Yeah.
The bus scene in particular, he falls asleep and he quote unquote wakes up, but it's still a dream. And Sutter Kane is sitting next to him. He's talking to him. And he says, the last thing he says is, "Did I ever tell you my favorite color is blue?" And then he wakes up and everyone on the bus all of their clothes are blue. Well, and the sky is blue.
The tint,
it's tinted blue.
They put a tint on it that's blue, yeah.
Yeah. And then he wakes up again. I wish he hadn't woken up again. I think that scene particularly plays better and works better if he wakes up and everyone is wearing blue. Or if everyone was wearing blue before and it wasn't as obvious. And then we were like, oh, crap, everyone was wearing blue the whole time.
See,
at least not subsequently.
That's interesting because it didn't occur to me that everyone was actually wearing blue. I just saw blue tint. And
no, their clothes are intentionally changed to
okay,
blue.
Sure, but the problem is, you can't ignore the blue tint. The problem with that is then the rest of the movie would look like that, and then like,
Oh yeah, you're right.
then you
Well,
have the problem of like okay, then my possible read of it was all Sutter Kane in the first place from the beginning is kind of then just like obvious, like that's what's going on, because he's not in, well, unless it became that way because more people are reading the books. I guess it could be like that, but then why did he wake up and realize it? And that's a question throughout, where like there's things he doesn't notice and suddenly he does, and I don't know why he doesn't notice things over Styles. And anyway,
yeah. So then he gets back to the, is it, what are you when you're the head of a publishing house? Is he the president?
He's the publisher.
The publisher. Okay. So he gets back to the publisher, who is bizarrely played by Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
He's in like 2 scenes, and for some reason it's Charlton Heston. And he says he says that Linda does not exist. He does not know who Linda is. That like he understands that like he's saying that John is saying that Charlton Heston sent Linda with him, but he doesn't know who that is.
And that he also already delivered the manuscript like 9 months earlier.
Yeah, and that the movie comes out like next week. That there's already a movie adaptation.
And remember that he burned, he destroyed what he thought was the only copy, but it's been on the stands for like 7 weeks.
Yeah. Well, he destroys it, and then it gets mailed to him again.
Oh yeah.
And then, so then he goes to a
Eric,
to a
I think you
bookstore.
and I should write a book like this.
I actually have a lot of,
like, we just go back and forth
thoughts?
like this, and then this happens, and then this crazy thing happens.
I actually have thoughts about if this movie would work as a book.
Oh no, we have to talk about that because it's trying to be structured like a Stephen King novel.
Yeah. But so
or
then
hack
he goes
horror
to
in general. And I'm not calling Stephen King a hack. I just mean, horror novels that people have called hack novels before.
Very tropey. Yeah.
Formulaic, yeah.
Yeah. Which they talk about in this movie.
They do.
So John goes to the bookstore, and maybe the most unbelievable thing in this movie happens. A guy walks out having just purchased the book and is like 3/4 of the way done with it. And then John says, like, how do you like the book? And he goes, I love it. And then John kills him with an axe. Which takes us to, I guess I skipped the fact, this movie starts with him being admitted to an insane asylum and then telling this story. This is how he got to the insane asylum. David Warner leaves, and John Glover asks him, like, was he able to tell you anything? And he goes, no, he thinks it's all fiction. Which is implying that, everything that we've been told up to this point is completely true. The world is becoming like a Lovecraft story, and there's monsters. And then there's monsters, and everyone in the hospital dies or goes crazy and leaves. John leaves. He stumbles to a local movie theater, which is playing In the Mouth of Madness, which is directed by John Carpenter, but everyone else's names are the characters' names. So it is John Trent as John Trent. It is Linda Stiles as Linda Stiles. It's not the actual actors playing the characters. And he goes into the movie theater, and he has popcorn, and he sits down.
That's my favorite thing, is that he has popcorn, because it's so silly, and it's intentionally silly, because you got all these people killing each other outside, and actually, at this point, it seems like there's like nobody on the streets. It's totally deserted. And he walks in, and you're like, okay, is this theater still being manned? Where did he get the popcorn? Like,
and he sits down.
How is the movie starting on time?
I don't know. well, here's the thing.
Is it an automated theater? And that's why once you get to the end, I think that Sutter Kane is still writing everything that's happening. Not just John, everything.
Here's part of it is this movie can't have any leaps in logic because literally everything in this movie, because we're told that Sutter Kane is a formulistic, not great writer.
Yes.
That literally everything in this movie could be intentional artistic license. It is intentionally ridiculous and silly by the actual screenwriter, not Sutter Kane, that he has popcorn, that the movie is playing. Like, this movie comes up with an explanation to make, like, every little thing that you would normally think is stupid be okay, because it might intentionally have been written as stupid because it's supposed to be written by an okay writer.
And that is the one thing it's completely consistent about. It's the only thing it's totally consistent about.
And then I guess so the movie ends.
It is a hack, really bad, like we're talking like on the level of Maximum Overdrive, Stephen King movie, and it knows it, and it's on purpose. And it makes it nearly review proof.
Well, except that some of it doesn't really. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
So the film ends with him watching the movie that you just watched.
Kind of.
Yeah. I'm unsure if, because we see clips, and I'm not sure if that's supposed to be what he's watching, because they show a couple of scenes like multiple times. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be like the film projector is showing it weird, or if that's how he's seeing it and he's reacting, or if we're supposed to understand that this film is just playing on loop and he just keeps watching it. But basically, anytime anyone talks about reality, how things are sane, there's a scene earlier where like he knocks on wood, he's like, see, reality. But now John is crazy and is aware that reality is entirely malleable and just laughs hysterically.
Mm-hmm.
Credits. Directed by John Carpenter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. No, I had the same question about whether he was seeing it all clipped up like that at the end the way we were. Because, I mean, the thing is, you get to a point where he might be an insane person and you're seeing it from his perspective, so you can't trust anything. But even if he's not an insane person, it might be all being written by a horror writer, so you can't trust anything. But the thing that made me really wonder about it is that there are bits of that sequence where he's sitting there and you're seeing him like you're looking at his face while he's watching the movie, and you're hearing it clipped up like that. And that makes it seem like it's playing in real time.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it leads to your thinking that he's got to be watching this, like, condensed, clipped up version of it, but then, you don't know because he's a crazy person, maybe.
Yeah. If nothing else, he's a crazy person at the end of this movie. It's entirely possible that he isn't until this moment. This is the moment where he just gives in and just lets the madness take him.
The problem is John Trent may not be a person at all.
Right.
And so once you get past the revelation that, and we see this play out in practice, that he's doing things sometimes because he's forced to. Like the movie makes a big deal out of how he's an independent person that doesn't want to think that anyone can pull his strings. And that's kind of his prevailing character trait, and he's, I think, intentionally made to be kind of a wooden one-note stereotyped character. He
also doesn't believe in anything. He thinks everyone has an angle, everyone's lying, and that everything is a trick.
Yeah, and he's kind of. Would you agree that he's kind of an archetype? Like, he's not really.
He is, but again, I think that's intentional.
Oh no, I do too, absolutely, and I'm not really criticizing it for that. I don't think I don't know what I can criticize and what I can't about this movie.
There's these weird moments. There's these weird moments that are completely 100% character moments that don't actually make any sense.
Yeah.
But they're the kind of beat that you put as that character, that person does not have a horn in his glove box to wake someone up, but it's a funny beat. Like, it's this thing where I'm like, I think it's intentionally bad because it's a funny beat, and that's what you would put if you were just trying to, like, keep your reader entertained.
Boy, that's a great point. Yeah, and like it's all kind of surface and shallow, and it's supposed to play like here's a personal detail about this person, but it's completely random.
Yeah, yeah, or it's a very obvious intentional setup for something later.
Right.
Um,
And there's a lot of those too.
uh, I guess I should say I was kind of running through the couple of Carpenter films I hadn't watched, and I finally watched this film, which is a film I'd always meant to see. I just never gotten around to it. And I watched this about 5 times over the course of 2 weeks. Um, because I personally watched it a couple of times, and then I just had to keep showing it to people. I'm like, have you seen this movie? This movie's crazy.
Yeah, it's just a fascinating study. Like I don't know how to just watch a movie like this. This feels like a thing that is meant to be poured over.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing about this movie, is what I can kind of gauge is most people think this is a really interesting film that either just works or just doesn't work. I think this film just works. SF Debris has actually done a review of this, and he falls on the other side. He thinks it just doesn't work. Or at least that's not his exact words, but that seems to be the impression I get from people, is they either... Everyone seems to think it's a really interesting idea, it's a really interesting film, and it just barely works or it just barely doesn't work.
Yeah, ultimately my problem with it is I don't know where to fall because I don't know what its purpose is at the end of the day. And I
don't know.
I don't think it's communicating purpose. So I don't know how you can say it just works when you don't know what works means, because that word means a different thing with every movie you watch. So like, what is this movie trying to be exactly? And at different points in the film, I think I know.
Be a really... Okay.
And I think it's an experiment, and I think it's almost a social experiment, and and I think that it borders on metafiction, but it doesn't quite get there because again, Sutter Kane's not a real person, and there's nothing about this that fits it in our real world. There's no there's a weird thing that I'm gonna compare this to, and I would have thought of this even if Curious Low hadn't recently talked about this movie, but I was reminded in places of Neverending Story when I was watching this.
Yeah, well, and when it was first, when the plot summary was first released for Goosebumps, everyone was like, "Wait, is that In the Mouth of Madness?"
Yeah,
just
and
as Goosebumps.
See, and I was going to make that point later. It reminded me also a little bit of Goosebumps, and you can't tell me that this is not one of R.L. Stine's favorite films.
Oh, it's got to be one of
It's got to be because R.L. Stine and Goosebumps was at its height of popularity in 1994.
Yeah.
R.L. Stine always makes, and you know, his character does this in that movie, a big deal out of the twist, and this movie is nothing but a bunch of bizarre twists. Like, that's what it is. And again, doing it intentionally in making fun of and possibly even criticizing this kind of fiction for being nonsensical, not really being about anything, and just trying to freak people out and drive them crazy. And so it's possible to look at this movie as a thing that is trying to sort of, in a kind of a fun tongue-in-cheek way, do to its audience what it's doing to its main character. You're watching In the Mouth of Madness. At the end, he is watching himself in a movie called In the Mouth of Madness that is more or less the movie you're watching, and I think it's intended to drive its audience insane, trying to figure out what the hell it is. That's this movie. I don't know what its purpose is at the end of the day. I think it is completely possible that when you get to the credits, what you watched was a completely pointless waste of time. Because you didn't actually watch a movie about a character, you watched a movie that is supposed to be a thing that was adapted from a book where a guy put himself in the book and he just I don't even know.
Well, no. This movie is not the movie within the film, because this movie stars Sam Neill, not John Trent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you're definitely right about that. But see, that's what makes me think that it's even more sort of a waste of time. Because I don't know how to even explain this. It watches like it might all kind of come together and make sense, and it's a big mystery. And then I'm not even sure by the time I've gotten to the end that the guy that wrote the books,
Sutter Kane.
yeah, that's right. No, I know. It just, I'm not sure that Sutter Kane, like, actually did all the like was inspired by the demons from another world or whatever, and that he's not just writing a book that was adapted to be. But then you're right. It's not. It isn't. At the end, really, the movie within the movie.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Well, I'm unsure if there are things.
But then the problem is the movie. But the movie inside of the movie is still directed by John Carpenter.
Yeah.
So it at least has this like
kind
of
within universe. John Carpenter would direct this movie, right?
No, you're absolutely right, because it does, and that's part of the problem with it putting it in a universe that is as reminiscent to ours as it's supposed to be, because it also name drops Stephen King a couple times, and I resisted that really hard initially. But I'm not sure that it's not trying to do something with that too. I just don't know.
See, I think by name dropping Stephen King, I think it's supposed to be there. I think it's there for the audience. Like, it is supposed to, it's really quick shorthand. This guy is bigger than Stephen King.
But here's what I don't like about that. We know from the very beginning, when you see the book covers and when they talk about him, and especially later on when we talk about movie rights and stuff and making the movie, that we're looking at the Stephen King of this universe. Why does that have to be a universe that also has Stephen King in it? He is an analog for Stephen King. His name is Sutter Kane. It's the same number of syllables. It starts with an S. The last name ends with or begins with a K sound. Stephen King should not exist in this universe.
Well, you know what's funny about the covers? Because you say that they look like Stephen King books. They're styled like Stephen King books, but they have cooler covers than any Stephen King book has ever had.
Well, they're Goosebumps books.
They're better covers than that. They're
not actually Goosebumps books, but they're like Stephen King books if he had like Goosebumps-esque titles, because the titles are Goosebumps titles.
Actually, all of the titles are slightly altered versions of Lovecraft titles.
Are they really? See, I don't know anything about Lovecraft. You realize you brought this movie to the wrong person, right? Like,
I know you're not the Lovecraft guy.
I'm not in any way whatsoever qualified to talk about it. Like, if this is a conversation with Steve, it would be a way more interesting conversation.
Okay, but here's the thing. I'm not here to talk about Lovecraft. I'm here to talk about a crazy movie. I
don't know why the hell I'm here.
Breaks the bounds of metafiction and is commenting on itself, commenting on things. Like,
yeah,
yes, it is. Because there are so many things in this movie that are either brilliant or bad writing. There's a lot of character stuff that's either brilliant or bad writing.
And the problem is a lot of that might be intentional, but then to what end? So, to Hobbs' end.
Yeah, to Hobbs' end.
Okay, here's what... Can we break this down a little bit? Because I can't figure this thing out, because I don't think there is any figuring it out, and I think that the reaction we're having is what is intended. It's supposed to drive you crazy.
I don't think it's supposed to drive you crazy. I think it's supposed to be a movie that you just can't stop thinking about. You want to keep trying to piece it together.
It drives you crazy in a positive way. You know what I mean? In as positive way as it can. It doesn't think that it made a thing that's actually going to make you go out and kill people with an axe. But okay, so let me ask you this. Here's where I get off saying that I'm not sure that there is an actual real reality in this, and that it's not supposed to be all fiction. Like, I get that it's not really the movie within the movie, but I feel like something tells me in that third act that I'm watching a thing that is a fiction and knows it's a fiction, and that nothing I'm looking at is supposed to be real at all, and that you're looking at the guy who's laughing because he realizes that it was a fiction all along. I don't know, but here's the thing. Nothing we see in that first act is actually real, because we know that things happened differently according to the reality we see at the end than what we witnessed. So you can't trust any of that.
Right.
So once he gets to, air quote, reality at the end, and he's got the publisher telling him that the girl that went with him wasn't actually real, and that he gave that to, so then it comes down to, is he crazy, or is he written to be crazy, or both? What's really weird is Sutter Kane's on the bus in what seems to be a dream sequence, but we never actually see Sutter Kane again. So then it's possible
no,
that
we
it's
don't,
all.
and I think that's a little bit of a mistake.
But then it's possible. Hear me out on this, because I have a second possible read, which is there's a point in the movie where he falls asleep and he never wakes up.
Or there's a point in the movie where he legitimately goes crazy, and and everything that we're seeing is filtered through he is now, and he is the only crazy person.
And that's possible, but then it means that we're just like, the thing is, there's only a little bit of evidence to support that, and it's enough that it could be that. What kind of?
Well, that's not my theory. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, what made me
also
wonder?
A possibility.
Yes, but what made me wonder if that might not be it is that you've got the monster old lady riding on the bicycle with the playing card flipping, and then when he gets dropped out of Hobbs Inn back into the real world, there's a kid that rides by with a bicycle that also has the card flipping thing, and that makes you think that it's possible that he is at different points in the movie seeing real things, and his mind is playing them as other things. Right. So it could be that, but here's where I'm
also the here's the thing about it playing with tropes and intentionally doing stupid things. It's also the standard like schlock reveal, right? Of like, oh, which is again when they reveal that Styles isn't a real person, I go against that. I don't like that. That feels like a step too far. That we're now for some reason retconning characters out of this story. But at the same time, that person was never real the whole time is a standard schlocky reveal.
Yeah, and
I think it's intentional.
Just because it's intentional doesn't mean that it. See, I don't like to use the word works because I don't know what it's doing. So like, I can't say, oh, it doesn't work. I'm like, what does that mean in this context? Like, what is it attempting to do? But the thing is, okay, so we know for sure that Styles is being written by Sutter Kane, and that everything she does, at least from a certain point on, is him writing her that way. So when he goes back into the real world, I can kind of maybe see she doesn't exist because she's a product of that world, but that would mean, because other people can interact with this isn't a sixth sense thing. Other people interact with her, and the publisher. By the way, I want to know who the real editor is, if she's not the editor. But anyway, the publisher at the beginning knows her. And remember that he literally steps off the page! He walks through a page of the book and goes back into the real world, which tells you, potentially, that everything up to that point was that book. Including all the stuff in the real world. Well, then what is he stepping back into? I don't know. And that's why I say he might have fallen asleep and never woken up. Because he's...
Okay.
Because he reads the books, and he falls asleep, and then he wakes up, and then crazy things happen, and then he wakes up again, and crazy things happen. But then later on, you have more dream sequences. Is it possible that he's fallen into a whole bunch of layers? And then, here comes my crazy, crazy theory. There's this thing with the number 7 in this movie. Well, it's with the number 6, but then it's intrinsically dealing with the number 7 because there are 6 books, and then In the Mouth of Madness is the 7th book, and you got 7 Deadly Sins, and that's a standard like biblical revelation number, and we deal with that with 6 and 7 all over the movie. I don't know if you noticed this one, but when he's in the hotel at the end, his hotel room number is 6. I think that's intentional.
I didn't pick up on the numerical thing at all, so...
And so I counted the number of books, and before you get to In the Mouth of Madness, there are 6 books, and then In the Mouth of Madness is the 7th book. If I'm not counting wrong, he wakes up 6 times.
Okay.
And that might mean something. What I'm thinking is... No, here's my point. Here's the thing. Okay. I don't know if I'm right about the number of times. I could have counted it wrong. But if I'm right, he's not actually crazy. He only needs to wake up one more time when he's back in the real world. Huh. It could be layers.
That's interesting. Okay.
Now that is a radical read. I don't think that's what it's doing.
Okay, here's my thing with him being in the book and this whole movie being the book. I think it is, but it's not. It is, but it isn't. It is, but it isn't. Okay. His book is dictating events that happen in reality. So the movie isn't the book, but it is the things in real life that are happening because he wrote them in the book. Does that make sense?
Hold on, I'm processing that. But so are you saying that then the movie is an adaptation? I mean, it is an adaptation.
No. Okay. So if we strip all of the madness,
I'm sorry. Give me a second. Are we talking about the movie we're watching, or are we talking about the movie that he's watching?
No, the movie we're watching.
Okay, thank you. I need to get
the actual
there.
film in the Mouth of Madness.
No, sorry. It's just we end this movie with a movie, and I need to know which one we're talking about. Okay. So the film we watched.
The film we watched.
Okay, I'm with you.
So when we kind of peel everything back, if you had to pitch this in like a 2-sentence thing, it is that a writer's writing starts writing reality, right?
Yes.
Like that's.
You're saying that's the log line.
Yeah. So this movie is reality, but being manipulated by the writer. So it is in fact the book that he's writing, but we're not watching an adaptation of that book or that book. We're watching reality that is manipulated by that book.
Okay, so here's the thing. What that means then, and that makes this make maybe a little bit more sense, and it's not quite as wild as we're making it out to sound. So the idea then would be that what you saw at the beginning actually was reality, but it's been altered.
Yes.
So when you get to the end and Styles disappears, she really did exist, but he's gotten the power to write real people out of reality.
Right, which is why...
Okay, that's what's going on. That's the tangible... Yeah, okay. Well, the last 20 minutes were completely pointless.
Which is why...
Sorry, folks.
Like the really weird stuff that he sees are mostly those dreams in the beginning. Everything else that happens that's really off in the beginning of the film are from people that read Sutter Kane, like his agent, who have already started being manipulated and changing.
Oh, good call.
So the entire world is altered at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
The question is, how much of the beginning of the movie is he in control of? Because here's the thing about getting rid of Styles at the end of the movie, is that he gets rid of Styles so that John Trent looks crazy to the editor. That is why that happens.
Oh, that's a good point.
And at that point, he's completely in control of John Trent. Because that's going to get him into the insane asylum. Or at least make him realize that he's so lost. Because I think he intentionally goes to the insane asylum. It's like a protection thing. Like, he realizes the world's about to go crazy.
See, what confused me about that was that it looked like when he first got there, he was resisting it, and then something changed we didn't see where suddenly he wants to be there.
It's when he covers the entire room with crosses.
But if you're saying he went there on purpose, then he intended to do all of that.
Yeah, and he shouldn't have kicked that guy in the balls.
Like, I don't know why he did that. That's what I'm saying. That's confusing. Also, side note, and again, you can make anything work, I guess, in a thing where you've got a horror writer changing reality, but you can't possibly put that many crosses on all those things with a single black crown, and on his face is marker.
Yeah, no. You cannot crayon on your skin. That does not work.
No, you can't crown on half the surfaces in that. Why don't you just make it a marker? And that's supposed to be sort of a, well, I don't want to say callback because we bookend with that, which is, by the way, it's like a structure. I don't know if structure trope is a thing to say, but it's like a cliche structure thing in horror and just like schlocky things in general, that you do the in Medias Res thing where you open with the ending. So like it's doing that on purpose too.
Well, okay. See, this is where it goes to Lovecraft. Almost all Lovecraft stories are first person, or at least the popular ones, are first person with someone recounting an event that happened, and usually ends with the person being like, I've gone crazy now, or no one will believe me, or the thing, it's outside the door.
Oh, and you know what? I forgot that we're not, I forgot about this. We're not just bookending it. I mean, we might be being sort of gimmicky, but it's not like we just see that and then suddenly we flash forward. He's actually telling the story. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
right?
He's telling the story to Ra's al Ghul. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
You know, David Warner.
David Warner.
Yeah, Ra's al Ghul. Um, or actually, he's Ra's al Ghul. Um,
Yes.
but
Yes, he is.
but yeah, so if this story, if the movie is in fact the book, it makes sense on kind of that it starts with the insane asylum, and then things happen that make him look crazy because we know that we have to get him back to the insane asylum. However, my distinct interpretation is that reality is altering as the movie is progressing, and we do start on solid reality and we end in Sutter Kane world. So the 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 framing device is more the film itself than it is the reality and story within the film.
Oh no, certainly. And I think that's done in like again somewhat because it's trying to use those horror motifs, but I think also so that the audience isn't so jarred when things are actually supernatural.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Like I think it's trying to introduce us to the tone of this crazy movie. Because if we because I remember thinking when I first watched this that scene that after when he starts telling the story when he's revealing some big case that he's worked out for his job, I'm like, this looks like the pilot for a detective procedural.
It also feels like the most like 1990s introduction of a character.
Oh yeah, and the most 1990s of a procedural.
Yeah,
like that guy could hang out with Matlock. Like,
yeah. And I really like that scene. I think that's a really fun scene. There is one scene in this movie that, regardless of everything else in the film, I think is genuinely awful. I think it's badly written. I think it's badly acted. And that's their conversation in the car about reality.
Yep, it's you know what, you take that out and it's instantly a better movie.
Well,
let's just take it out.
This is the problem with that scene. Is that that scene needs to go, because it's a stupid argument for why you like a horror writer. Is I love the idea of what if reality shared his perspective, because then any writer you must love. Because what if reality shared any writer's perspective? Wouldn't that be weird?
Well, and it's almost it almost sounds like, I mean, like then if you take that logic and you apply it to the movie, you can't criticize anything.
Yeah. Well, and then I like just the idea of she because he says, this is reality. It's not like her whole thing is, what I like about his books is, what if reality shared his opinion? And then, like, John Trent is like, well, it doesn't work like that. Like, I'm not crazy. And she's like, but what if everyone else was crazy? And then you were the last sane person, which is foreshadowing, but it's also stupid. Because if everyone believes that chairs can fly and talk, doesn't make chairs fly and talk?
Yeah, and that's the way she talks about it. I mean, she goes even
farther than that. The problem is
that
it is also the premise of this film.
Yeah.
That reality is a democracy.
She comes, and I love that, and I love that SF to rewind
conversation.
She comes, and this is one of those things where as I was watching this and taking notes, I was like, I don't want to just do this this podcast with Eric. I want to like write a like Rewind United on this, and then I was like, there's no point in me doing that. SF already has a good video, but. The thing is,
I would love to see you try and write a review of this.
I may at some point, because it's really interesting. But like I said, and well, the thing is, I think I might have a slightly different take from him on it, because okay, so that like she goes even farther than what you were explaining, where she even says like she opens that whole conversation by saying reality is just whatever everybody decides together that it is. It's like and that's why I said Debris says reality is not a democracy. Here's the problem, and what makes that so ridiculous. It watches like it's the cornerstone idea for the whole movie, and we have an in-story explanation for how this is all possible. So you don't need that.
Yeah.
Like, monsters are making it possible, and they feed off of people believing in a thing. So you don't need to have this like pseudo philosophical mumbo jumbo. You have a fantasy explanation that is perfectly acceptable within this heightened universe, I think, where you say, okay, you've got these monsters that come from another dimension, and they feed on, and this is where it reminds me a little bit of Neverending Story, where it's like the reverse of that, where you have the nothing, and it feeds on people not having imagination. And this is feeding on people using their imagination and having a break from reality. So the whole idea is it's able to change reality because these people give it what it needs in order to do that. I mean, like, it's silly, you can't explain it, it's a conceit, but that conceit makes 100,000 times more sense than if I got enough people together and we all decided that Eric was a unicorn stuck in a vacuum cleaner. He's a unicorn stuck in a vacuum cleaner.
Well, it's that at this moment she is supposed to be a sane, rational person.
She hasn't been taken over by Cain yet.
Well, we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Yeah, well, like that's
especially because Cain makes it sound like he created John in the first place.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is both Styles and John, it's ambiguous because within my theory of we start in the real world and we kind of end in Crazy Town, it's still ambiguous whether John existed before this movie opens. Even if we're in reality, he might be fictional and Styles might be fictional.
Well, okay, so
that have been somehow forced into reality.
Yeah, okay, so what's the thread then? Like his sole purpose is supposed to be to bring that manuscript to the publisher so that people will go crazy when they read the book.
You would think that this would be a lot easier if he just turned in his manuscript on schedule.
Like, he's... Well, okay, so we're told later that he's already turned it in, but then he hasn't because it's been rewritten for that to happen. So I guess he had to do in what reality was before the book changed it, or before, Sutter Kane changed it, what he did, but so that could happen earlier? Like, now we can, like, retroactively change things too, I guess?
Well, he's...
So what I'm thinking is that he's the
power
first. He must be the
6 books. People being fans already give him some power.
Some power, right? And so that must have been enough power to dream up a single person and put him in. So that would make John the first thing that he creates from scratch. Maybe
probably
is my best guess.
If John is fictional.
We only have the word of a man who might be a figment of John's imagination, that John is a figment of his imagination. But I don't think that's what's going on. I'm just saying it's possible. Because the thing is, it is asking us to ask throughout the movie whether John is crazy. So I think it's fair to say that even though we have sort of this explanation of reality being changed and stuff, that it is possible that it's all in John's mind and he was a crazy person from the very beginning. Somehow.
That's also absolutely possible. Or that he is crazy at the end and beginning in the insane asylum. That he's crazy and he is retelling rational events as being far crazier than they are.
And then he's an unreliable narrator. But that's
no, because at the end of the film, David Warner leaves and says he's useless. He thinks it's all fiction. Clearly, at the end of the film, the entire world is crazy and overrun by monsters and crazy people.
Yeah, and he gets killed by somebody who is in turn one of those crazy people.
It can't be John's storytelling that makes it unreliable. Because we know the world alters by the world is full of monsters and crazy people at the end of this movie.
And also, he walks outside and is no longer telling the story, so we're seeing events as they're playing out.
Yeah.
Presumably.
Well, and it should be noted that this is the third in what John Carter refers to as his Apocalypse trilogy.
You mean John Carpenter?
Yeah. Sorry. What did I say?
You said John Carter. John Carpenter of Mars.
Oh. John Carpenter. This is the third of what John Carpenter refers to as his Apocalypse trilogy, which are really 3 completely unrelated movies. that all end with a possible end of the world.
Yeah.
They're more thematically linked. They're not in the same universe in any way.
We even get a timetable.
What?
Like we're told that if things continue to go the way they are with no sort of intervention, that humanity will completely destroy itself in 10 years.
In this movie?
Yeah.
Do they say that?
Yeah, that's he says
okay.
that at the end, and I thought that was really funny. And then he has that weird line about how like humanity will only be a memory, and I'm like, from who? There's no one left.
Well, the monsters.
Oh yes, of course, the monsters. That must be what he's talking about. Sure.
Well, there's a so each of these movies are kind of an eve of the apocalypse. Like, they're called the Apocalypse Trilogy. None of them take place in the apocalypse. Each of them are kind of like of the three. The one I'm sure you've heard of is The Thing.
Yeah, well, and I'm reminded of The Thing in this with certain special effects.
Oh, yeah. And The Thing ends with the implication that if the Thing reaches civilization, it's over. It will take over so fast. They were only able to hold off because they were a small installation. Once that thing hits the cities, the world is over.
Right.
And so, this movie, the world is over at the end of this movie.
Yes.
Like, it makes me want to rewatch Prince of Darkness, which is the middle one, and see if each movie ends a little bit more into the apocalypse. Like, The Thing has the implication of the apocalypse. Maybe Prince of Darkness has... Prince of Darkness has, I guess, a certainty of the apocalypse. And then this movie is into the beginning of the apocalypse. The world is over at the end of this movie.
Yeah, there's no hope. A lot of people are already dead. Did you... I wonder if this movie was in any way whatsoever an inspiration on Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah. I hadn't made that connection.
I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's similar in that, well, there's some shots and things that remind me of it, especially in the asylum toward the end, just like some creepy wide shots and the way it's lit and stuff. But then, the fact that like you get to the end and it's you're like you said, on the eve of apocalypse, and there's no hope, and it's monsters that had intended to do this all along.
Well, and obviously those monsters in Cabin in the Woods are also kind of Lovecraftian.
Yeah. And it's also a thing that's parodying and maybe even criticizing a lot of horror things, and it's intentionally doing idiotic stuff, but making a point about that. But the difference is those characters feel like real people, and this guy is being written throughout the movie. Maybe
when they're being dumb, we are intentionally told that they are like that. They're
under an influence.
Yeah, they put things in like their hair dye that made the blonde chick dumber and things like that.
Yeah, I actually did do a full blown rewind on that movie.
That's more coherent than this movie.
It is. It is, and I know, and the thing is, that's a big mystery that has a wonderful revelation that is built to, and everything is paid off. And you get to the end of this, and I'm just not really sure what the big problematic thing about anything he does after he walks out of the page of the book, and even really before that, is that now he could be completely controlled by Sutter Kane if you're to believe anything you've been watching, and so he's not a person anymore.
He doesn't walk out of the page. He just looks off the edge of the page.
I thought he ran out of it. I thought he literally ran down the hallway and out of it.
No, if you remember, Sutter Kane has that really bizarre... Oh, no, maybe he does run out of it.
I thought he ran out of it.
Oh, see, I was thinking of that really weird special effect where Sutter Kane tears himself out of reality.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know.
I don't know how to read that.
Well, to be fair, that... They didn't have the special effects. I know in that scene in particular, they did not have the special effects do what they wanted to do.
Okay.
It was supposed to open up and, like, suck him in, and then John got sucked in, and then was going to wake up where, outside of town with that kid on the bike. That's what was supposed to happen.
I mean, maybe we
okay.
can just look at that as a like really cool novel looking effect. I don't know. I don't know
It doesn't look good, but it looks like it.
All I'm
It's
saying
a
is,
cool idea.
right? I don't. I just don't know if. Well, I like that it's kind of practical. I like that it's practical. I think they actually built something, but.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is I don't know how much stock I can take in any of that. Where like we're in the book, but then after that we're back in reality, and like I don't know what the point of that is.
It's to give us some of the coolest and best ever looking Lovecraft monsters, but not let us see them enough.
Oh, I guess the idea is supposed to be that like he. Well, I actually liked that they were as secluded as they were. Because I think some of them would have been too silly not to. But let me make this point real quick before we get into just talking about, like, physically, if things looked good. It's just like, okay, I guess the idea is supposed to be we have to actually go literally inside the book because he hasn't been able to, like, completely alter reality yet. And then whenever he leaves, now reality gets altered because the book gets delivered. That must be the point.
Well, and we have... I forget where it is. I forget if it's voiceover or if it's actually written in the book where he's looking over. But we know what the text is, where it says, like, and he stared off into the abyss. So we know at least that scene is in the book.
And he's narrating it as it's happening.
Yeah. But
I'm sorry, what about the monsters?
They look really cool. And we keep them in shadows and we just get a little bit of them. And then we get one shot where we see them completely, and it's too short. Like why would you have a complete like you can see them shot if you were going to cut away? Like either fully keep them in shadows or let me see them, because they're really cool practical effects like puppet monsters like in The Thing.
Yeah, like
and we have the same thing with the old lady earlier when we get to see her all weird like Lovecraft monstery.
Honestly, the sense I got. Because I don't know 100% agree with you, because I think there's a couple other places where we do linger on like not that kind of a monster, but on a creature for a decent amount of time. I think that if you're talking about the one with the tentacles and all the blood and stuff,
the wall of monsters that chase him.
Oh, did we actually see those like really close?
There is a split-second shot where we have where they are the full, almost like a splash page, where like we see them. But it's just for a split second. And if you pause the movie, it looks cool. I wish it lingered just a little bit longer.
You've seen it more times than me, and I was kind of taking notes this last time, so I might have looked away.
I mean, like, this has nothing to do with the story. It's just a little...
Yeah, sure. Well, I was just going to make the point that, like, maybe the tentacle thing was too grotesque to linger on it for very long. Like, it's pretty gross.
Oh, that might be. Well, and I like that one's kind of kept in the shadows. It's that with the wall of monsters thing... it's because we do get a full shot, but it's like really, really quick.
Yeah.
The scene with the old woman is really creepy. Like legitimately, like a lot of the stuff in this movie isn't actually scary, or it's incredibly redundant. So it's not like there's literally a shot/scene in this film where someone puts their hand on Styles as a jump scare, and she turns around and there's no one there.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of intentionally, like I'm not going to say this movie isn't scary. Like don't show this to your kids, but it's.
But to the initiated, it's not for the most part.
And then there's this.
It's
really
intentionally derivative.
This old woman.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, like some of the. I think the problem, or this isn't even a problem necessarily. I think the issue is there are places where Carpenter is aping something or being derivative and doing it better than the thing that he's deriving, so it's scary because it's better than you've seen it before.
Yeah. Well. Actually, there's two with the old woman.
Because when Styles does the, like, crustacean walk and then her head goes backwards, I've seen that in a lot of horror movies. It was freaky in this in a way it's not been in other things.
I think the scariest thing in this movie is before she does the crustacean walk. Which is just
what we're calling it now, trademark. That's our thing. That's ours. Crustacean walk. Tell your friends.
Did you call it crustacean walk because you couldn't think of the term crab walk?
No, I kind of like Crustacean Walk.
Okay. She sticks her head out, like the door is blocking her body, and she sticks her head out, and then you hear bones crunching.
Yes.
You hear her body like warping, and then she steps out, and you see it's all like weird, and I think that works amazingly.
Yeah, that is messed up.
But so is we have the old woman who at the desk like keeps kicking at something, and then it's her husband who's an old man in like kind of a gimp suit. Like I don't really know what I'd call it. It's like bondage wear, but he's like chained up and like crying. And then later you see that she's just a full-blown monster. I think both of those scenes are really evocative and scary. Or, I don't know if scary is the right word. They're really uncomfortable and, like, eerie in an intentional way.
Well, and they're memorable, and they're the places where you go, okay, this is an authentic John Carpenter movie, and not anybody could have made this movie.
Yeah, well, and it should be noted, the initial script for this film was written in the early 80s. The script for this film
that doesn't at all surprise me, because given that it's dealing so much with like weird and bad Stephen King movies, it's a little late.
Yeah. Well, and then
most of that's kind of done at that point, right?
Well, that script gets finished and gets kicked around. And then John Carpenter in the 90s agrees to make this film, but only if there's heavy rewrites. I don't know what he changed because his name isn't on the credits. So
for the script.
Yeah, but we know that he required a heavy rewrite, or that he did a heavy rewrite. So I'm wondering if we're looking at something that is really the ideas of two distinct different artists that just isn't gelling fully. I'm not sure. I think this movie is the single best contender I've ever seen for a remake.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think you can remake this movie.
You should pitch it on your pitching show.
It's going to happen at some point.
And you should force Matt to watch it.
Matt has watched it. I did force Matt to watch it.
Did he like it?
He did like it, but he also...
By the way, we're an hour and 12 minutes into this discussion. By the way, Eric and I expected this might go until the end of time because it's In the Mouth of Madness, so we've been driven insane.
45 minutes or 9 hours.
Right, yeah. But we haven't even done this. We could have led with this. I like this movie.
Oh, I do too. I love this movie. This movie immediately shot up as one of my favorite Carpenter films.
I don't know if I don't think I understand it. I don't think I'm supposed to understand it, and I don't know what its purpose. I still really like you said, it's meant to be constantly thought about. Yeah, and like I can't decide if it's even deserving of that, but I really like it. I think
if you remake this movie, you can streamline just a couple of things and make what the idea of the movie is just a little bit more clear.
Yeah, without dumbing it down.
And I think you can have an amazing film. I think this is a really good film that I think is really thought-provoking and really like captures my imagination, but it's a lot on goodwill. It's a lot on how well the movie is made as opposed to how good it actually is.
Do you think you can set it now, or do you have to make it a period piece? Because
I think you can do it now.
Because people don't,
I don't know.
Because not as many people read now. Like I don't know if you could do the same thing. It might be interesting to do it with a teen as like a teen book series or something.
You make it a young adult horror.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what I just said.
I know. We just talked over each other.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's exactly what you do. It's a teen horror thing. You make it Goosebumps. You make this the rated R R.L. Stine movie.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it kind of already is that. I would be fascinated to know what Stephen King thinks of this movie.
I don't know. I've never heard him talk about it.
I don't know if he's ever talked about it. I'm just saying, like, I would love to hear him talk about this movie.
I would love to hear H.P. Lovecraft talk about this movie, but he's long dead.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
At least the person I mentioned is still alive.
Well, it's interesting because
R.L. Stine is also still alive. We could ask him what he thinks of this.
That's true. We could tweet him.
We could
tweet. He has a Twitter.
I'll tweet R.L. Stine and see if I can get him to say anything about In the Mouth of Madness. He might. That'd be amazing. I'll be like, hey, R.L. Stein, what do you think of in the Mouth of Madness? Or no, I should say R.L. Stein, is In the Mouth of Madness your favorite movie? 'Cause it should be.
Well, the thing about this movie is that Sutter Kane is very much a combination of Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft, and I picked up on a lot of the Lovecraft things. And
yeah,
in my initial watchings, I kind of felt like, well, he's H.P. Lovecraft if he was as popular as Stephen King. And I've read quite a bit of Stephen King, but like I still was, I guess, in that Lovecraft mindset. And then you were like, yeah, but here's all these things that are very Stephen King. And I'm like, you're right. It is a blend of the two. So there's things that like I pick up on that are very H.P. Lovecrafty that you don't, but there's a lot of Stephen King in there too. I don't know what Stephen King would think of this movie. Because Stephen King also loves Lovecraft.
And like dealing with people who are so obsessed with horror fiction that they have kind of a break from reality. There's a little bit of misery there. Like there's even stuff in stuff in the plot of the movie that is just story stuff that's not as much the like let's parody or mess with horror tropes. That's like reminiscent of plots that he's done in things. And
you know what?
I don't know.
You know what doesn't work in this movie? That's like a horror thing. The way she watches the kids running with the dog, she gets freaked out before that scene turns weird. It is just children running with a dog, and then later they're like zombie children, and like the dog's missing a leg. But she's weirded out by them before that.
It's weird. See, I don't agree with that. It's weird because it looks like a totally deserted town, and all of a sudden here comes all these kids.
That's true.
Like, we haven't heard or seen
we know she's read the
anyone.
Book, so theoretically she knows what those kids are going to become.
Oh, you know what? That's probably what it's supposed to be. Hey, I have a random question for you that I just thought of.
Yes, I do, because cheese.
Because for the record, it wasn't me this time. When you get toward the end and he walks back down the alleyway that has the posters of Hobbs End, why? Well, two questions. One of them is, if you ripped a poster down and you saw what looked very much like a drawing of your own face, you would keep ripping, right? You wouldn't walk away from it. You would stare at that, wonder what it was, and you wouldn't just look at that picture and like not be curious. You would want to know what the rest of the picture looked like. You would keep ripping. He doesn't do that. But the more important question, of course, is why is it behind that? Like why is the Hobbs End poster in of a book that just came out in front of them, or of a book that came out before, in front of a movie poster of a movie that just came out this weekend?
Well, it hasn't come out at that point in the movie.
Oh, it hasn't?
It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, no, I guess it hasn't. Because
it's at the beginning where he doesn't. Nobody even knows what the next book is.
That's right. That's right. And he's in the insane asylum before that happens. And I don't think we know exactly how long he's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's that weird time skip when he goes to the editor, and the editor's like, "You turned this in 6 months ago." You know what I love about the fact that it gets turned into a movie?
So you don't have an answer to my question.
Oh no, it's dumb.
I mean, I don't know if it's dumb or not. I just don't know what the point of it is.
Well, no, because it's weird because it's the posters for a movie or the book, because that's the thing, is the poster on top of the poster is the poster for his last book.
For his last book.
So maybe in this universe we just have posters for books.
But here's the thing. You don't know if that's a movie poster or a book cover, but presumably it's a movie poster because that's the art from the movie poster.
But it's also the art from the book cover.
Is it? Did we see the book cover?
Yeah, we see the book cover.
Okay. So I guess they made the same poster. Which I guess they did.
It already looks like the actor playing the
No, and the only reason they did that's a plot contrivance, so that it's weird to say plot contrivance for this movie because it's all kind of but it's a plot contrivance so that when he goes into the theater and sits down, he won't necessarily expect to see his own face, even though his name's on the billboard. So I I don't know what the point of that is, but that never happens, right? Like the poster for Harry Potter was not the book cover.
No, it was not. I can't think of any. Well, maybe Jurassic Park, but other than that,
Jurassic Park wasn't exactly the same thing, though. It was
no, it's not exactly, but it's kind of the same thing of just the black T-Rex skeleton.
Yeah. Okay, well that's sort of similar.
Yeah, that's the closest. But no, we never.
Which is funny because Sam Neill was the main character in that movie too.
I wasn't. Yeah, you're right. I wasn't thinking of that. He also goes crazy in that other '90s movie that's named Event Horizon.
You know, we should also mention that Sam Neill is amazing in this movie.
He's great. He's really good.
I think Sam Neill has some of the most intense eyeballs in Hollywood. Like seriously, just like in eyebrows, just like whenever he's playing like mad crazy guy, he's just like he gets cast on those eyebrows.
Yeah. No, I was thinking of the Superman thing you said earlier.
What did I say about Superman?
From the Superman Legend of Neil Adams Superman.
Before we started recording, when Neil Adams has Superman finds out that Lex Luthor is behind some evil scheme, and he goes, "Damn his eyes."
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
You said he has some of the most intense eyeballs, and I was just, damn his eyes.
See, I meant to say eyebrows, but it came out eyeballs. And then I decided not to correct myself because that kind of works too. But then I said eyebrows because that's what I meant in the first place. And then damn his eyes came
you lost
out.
me, and I was confused.
Because
I just kept letting you talk because I thought you were talking about just kind of that area of his face.
I was. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we wrap things up here?
Yeah. You know, like I both feel like I have said everything I have had to say, and have barely scratched the surface of everything I have to say.
Absolutely.
I will 100%. Okay, if you're not squeamish in any way, I will 100% recommend you must watch this movie and watch it twice. Watch it, wait a couple of days, watch it again, because the second viewing is an even more interesting experience than the first viewing. Also, if anyone listened to this and hasn't watched the movie, did we make any sense? Like, can you follow this conversation at all?
Yeah, don't ask that question because the answer is no. I broke into your synopsis at the beginning too much.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry about that.
Do your homework. Go watch the movie. I really like this movie, and I would recommend if you're interested in writing and the structure of writing.
Yes,
this movie's kind of about the structure of writing.
Especially the structure of writing really schlocky things. And why people like really schlocky. You know, there's a line that I didn't buy when he says, when he's kind of critiquing it on the phone, and like the books, and he's like, well, they're they're all kind of the same plot, and they're really schlocky, but it's way better written than I would have expected. And I guess he had like really low standards because when you actually hear some of the prose later, I can't decide if it's supposed to be like half decent prose or if it's really really bad prose. Because it's really bad prose.
Some of that is H.P. Lovecraft prose slightly altered.
Is it really? Because a lot of it is like really bad prose.
H.P. Lovecraft is kind of purple prosy. Here's what I like about that line, is that because he doesn't just say it's better written than you think. He follows that up with, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the characters or the way it's told, but there's just something that compels me to keep reading, which is the best.
I don't remember him saying that. Did he say that?
Not exactly those words, but he says that there's like something about it that just makes him want to keep reading. And like, I mean, that's like every Dean Koontz book, and like a lot of the lower tier horror or adventure or romance writers is... There's just something about them that's just entertaining that like just keeps pulling you through. You know it's not very good, but there's something about it that you entertains you. And obviously in this, something about it might also be, you know, Ancient Monsters, you know, making you forcing you to read.
One thing I thought initially that might have been foreshadowing that turned out not to be was the...
Maybe it was. Maybe you just need another viewing.
I don't know, pal. This one, at the top of some of the like catchphrases for books were interesting, and at the top of Hobbs and Horror, it says, "If this book doesn't scare you to death, you're already dead."
My favorite. Okay, my favorite.
And it made
cover,
me wonder. Oh, is he a dead person?
There's
because it didn't scare him to death. He must already be dead.
I have the cover for The Feeding as my desktop background, which is one of those Sutter Kane books, because it's the greatest Lovecraft book cover that was never made.
Wait, what's it called?
It's called The Feeding.
Okay, that could ruin my whole 7 thing, because I don't have that one listed, which means there might be 8, but I thought there were only 7.
You don't have The Feeding listed?
I don't have The Feeding. I have Hobbs and Horror. I have The Breathing Tunnel. I have Haunter Out of Time, Whispering of the Dark, which has the phrase at the top, "Why are you whispering?" Which I love. The Thing in the Basement and The Terror.
Huh. Yeah, I've got a cover here that's called The Feeding. It's got the red lines, and I saw it in the book because it's got the cool Cthulhu on top of it.
That wasn't on his stack, though.
Maybe he missed one. It is, but if you go to the scene where he gets the book, The Feeding, because there's a very distinct Cthulhu type thing at the top or on the book, that is the cover of the stand of Sutter Kane things. Like on the top is that Cthulhu
weird.
monster.
Okay, well, I might be wrong about the 7 thing because there's 8 apparently.
You might have spent way too much time thinking about that. But the tagline. Well,
it was the only cool thing I felt like I was bringing to the table, and it's ruined now. Like the number at the hotel might be completely arbitrary at this point. Like this sounds like we wasted a lot of time with this particular podcast.
The tagline for The Feeding is the most like just terrible tagline that wouldn't make me want to pick up a book, because it makes it sound like the author has no ideas. The tagline for The Feeding is, "There's something very, very wrong with the children in this town." Like it's just the most unimaginative.
It's like is it more creepy because you used "very" twice with a comma in between? Like,
well, and what's even weirder is that if you look at the cover, it's children running away from something.
There's something wrong with these kids. Scary things are happening, and they're not running towards it. They're running away from it. That's messed up.
You know, that might be the implication. Since some of the other taglines are kind of playing with the audience a little bit.
I should also mention that there's a lot of humor in this movie that is, as you said, like maybe intentionally like cliche and silly. John has numerous moments of what I like to call John's words of wisdom. My favorite being, and I wrote this verbatim, never, never, never throw chips at a driver.
Yes. Yeah, that's right after he honks the horn.
I love that. That line is great. Okay, I got one more thing I got to mention before we end this.
Okay.
Very beginning of the movie, he's in the we could talk about this for another 3 hours. I feel like he's in the insane asylum, and
after he kicks a guy in the balls.
Yes.
And says it was a lucky shot, and then there's no possible way that it was a lucky shot. It was intentional.
Yeah. Oh well, that was a lucky shot.
He goes, "I'm sorry, it was a lucky shot."
I hate to break this to you, but that's what's between men's legs.
Yeah, he just kicked right there, and then he was like, "I'm really sorry."
It's like you shoot a man at point blank range and he's dead, and you're like, "That was a lucky shot, man."
Anyways,
really curious line first time you watch this, and you're absolutely right. You have to watch this twice. It's like Fight Club. It's not it's not like Fight Club, but it's like Fight Club.
It's not as tightly structured as
in that
Fight Club.
I have no idea what I'm watching or why I'm supposed to appreciate till I get to the end of that movie. This movie, I get to the end of the movie and I really don't know why I'm supposed. But there's all this like setup
and
interesting stuff that becomes that you start to pick up on structure that you didn't realize was there, and payoffs to things and stuff. If you watch it a second time, you have to watch this twice. But first time around, I thought this was a really curious line, and then I picked up on I was thinking more about like the director and stuff. At the very beginning of the movie, you have John Glover's character plays that song, and all the inmates start singing it. It's the slow ballad, and he goes, "Oh, not the Carpenters too."
Yeah, it's intentional.
And I thought that was really funny, but it wasn't until the second viewing where I was wondering if he was saying that because he doesn't like the Carpenters, or if it's because Sutter Kane somehow has ruined the Carpenters. Because when he says two, it's like, okay, he's like done all this other stuff, and it's like, oh no, not the Carpenters too. Like I don't think he's saying that because he doesn't like the Carpenters. I think it has something to do with this world that's been altered.
I thought he just didn't like the Carpenters.
I don't mean to read too much into a thing, but this movie, I can't help it with everything.
Yeah, that is the genius of this movie. Is it is structured and designed in such a way that any flaw could be intentional and brilliant.
Yeah, it could be genius.
I'm gonna tag on just a rants here. I've got a rants for this review.
No, do you have a rant? Yeah, because cheese.
Yeah, I have a rant. I have the Blu-ray for this, and it has commentary. The commentary is with John Carpenter.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it's him with the lighting guy. And the entire commentary is him going, oh, well, this is outside. How would you like this so that it looks natural? And then the guy would say some things, and he goes, oh, well, that's an industry term. Maybe,
well, if it's outside, you'd use the sun. oh, sorry.
Well, and then he talks about like inside, where he's like, well, it's daytime in this shot. You know, how would you like that to make it look like daytime? Oh, well, now it's nighttime. How do you like that differently? It is the most boring commentary, and John Carpenter has some of the best commentaries I've ever heard. And of all of the movies, I wanted a commentary for this one where he explains what he wanted people to take from this movie. And there is a commentary with John Carpenter, and he
refuses to in a really interesting way.
Yeah, no,
he could have added to the madness.
No, it's
in a brilliant way.
Maybe it is. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it is intentionally adding to the madness that he intentionally, someone who gives some of the best commentaries, intentionally gives a terrible, boring commentary for this movie because he doesn't want to explain himself. So yeah, that's my mini rant. Is that the commentary for this movie kind of sucks, and it's a bummer because if you listen to John Carpenter commentaries, he does really good commentaries.
What's so incredible about this movie, Eric, is that you can't even decide if you can criticize the commentary that's only about lighting.
It might be a meta commentary.
It might be on purpose. You can't even criticize that. It's review proof, this thing.
Yeah.
And I hate that term, but like, I it's just everything about it. You're like, this is bad, except it might not be bad.
It might be intentionally bad. Yeah, that's the thing, is whether you like or dislike or think this is good or bad, it's a really interesting watch.
Yeah, and it's really memorable. You won't forget this movie.
Yeah, well, except that the entire country did, because this came out in 1994 and nobody remembers it.
Well, I don't think anybody saw it. I think
That's
it's
true.
One of those.
It didn't do particularly great.
I had never heard of it before. I think it's just an underrated's not the right word because people have to see a thing to then underrate.
It's like a hidden gem.
But it's a hidden. It might be a hidden gem. I don't know if I can use the word gem because I don't understand this movie. But it's
a hidden infinite spiral that drives you into insanity.
But it's an underknown film, and like I think that if you see it, you'll be like, wow, how come people don't talk about this movie? This is fascinating. There's a lot of imagery that I will not. And that's kind of an achievement for a thing that's talking about other horror movies and like, maybe commentary, maybe parodying them. And
also for something that's 20 years old.
So much stuff that sticks with you. So I don't know. It's an impressive movie on a lot of levels.
Yeah, well, and we didn't really talk about Sutter Kane, who's played by Jürgen Prochnow. He's great for the 4 minutes he's in this movie. I wish he was in it more.
I kind of like I like these characters that have like this big ominous presence where you don't see them for most of the film, and then when you do, it's like really deserved. Like they really do feel like the ominous, scary presence that you've been picturing in your head the whole time. And so, like, I kind of like that he's only there for like 4 minutes because he feels like he's in the whole movie.
Yeah. And
that could have been a big letdown. You could have finally saw him and been like, "Oh, this guy's kind of nothing."
Well, and we get that one
He's got
shot
so
of
much
him
presence.
earlier when the doors do that weird opening closing thing, and there's the kid, and then there's him.
Yeah.
And we get that one shot of him, and then we don't really see him till later. But yeah, no, he has a lot of presence. I know him from Dune. He's Duke Leto in Dune.
Oh, okay. I've seen that like once, and I didn't care for it, so I haven't watched it again. But
you also don't like the book.
I know I don't want to open a whole Dune can of worms. Okay.
Dude, the movie of Dune is one of the most fascinating films ever made because it is indecipherable to someone who has not read the book.
Yeah.
But if you've read the book, you know everything wrong with it.
But that's not what happened with me. See, it's not that I don't like the book. It's that I've never been able to get past the first couple chapters of the book because I didn't care for the prose and I found it hard to read. So, like, I've never actually read the book.
Yeah, that's what I said, isn't it?
No, you said I didn't like the book. I can't not like a book I haven't really read.
Oh, well. You should really read it. It's really good.
I didn't like the prose of the couple of it's not fair. I can't criticize that book. It's not fair to criticize it. I just wasn't able to make myself keep reading.
You just weren't able to get into it. It's not the same.
That's all.
You're not saying it's bad. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I couldn't get into it.
Everyone, Cap hates Dune, and you should all message him about how he's wrong.
Everyone,
you're welcome.
Eric thinks he understands this movie.
I don't think I understand it. But I think I might have a slightly better grasp.
No, I know, but you're lying about me, so I thought I'd lie about you. Nothing really all that
Eric
great came to
mind. Eric
understands
this movie. Message him and have him explain it to you.
Eric sits around and tries to write me in a book to do different things, but it never works. He's like, and then Captain Logan hits his head repeatedly on his desk.
That's
Eric,
what you think, but just last night, I typed up a chapter in my novel of your life, and I said, Cap goes Power Morphicon, and also Disney.
Yeah, well, that hasn't happened yet, so we'll see. I mean, like, that's the plan, you know? But it could not turn out that way, Eric.
Well.
And also, you can't just write things you know are going to happen already and then be like, that was me. Yeah, well, you can't pull my puppet strings, Eric.
I can't wake up, turn on the Weather Channel, and have it, and, like, see it say, oh, it's going to rain at 3, and then I write, it's going to rain today at 3.
And then at 3 o'clock, it rained. And then he's like, nailed it. Everybody, thanks as always for listening. Hope you enjoyed our podcast on In the Mouth of Madness. And
I'm going to guess this might be the first time we've ever done anything where people actually don't make it to the end. I think this may be, if you haven't seen this movie, I think this conversation may have been so confusing. I think we lost 50% of the people listening to this video.
What's the word going to be this time, Eric?
Cattle prod?
Cattle prod, that's good.
I don't know. I for some reason I went captain's log. I was like, no, something different.
Mine's going to be Spatula City. If you got to the end of this commentary, it could have been a commentary. If you got to, I think this is about the length of the movie at this point. It
might have actually been easier if we just done a commentary.
We should have. If you got to the end of this podcast, we should at some point of this podcast.
Yeah, we totally will at some point.
Type Cattle Prod and or Spatula City, because we'd love to know if you actually made it. I guess you could also write, I got to the end, but it's much more fun if there's code words. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening.
If you're right, I got to the end, then everybody knows that you were supposed to write that I got to the end. But you write Spatula City, nobody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, until like 15 people in the comments write Spatula City, and then other people look at that and they feel like there's like peer pressure, and they're like, I'm for some reason I suppose I'm supposed to write Spatula City now.
And then they're just posting it on random videos, unaware of what the context.
And then it's like, if Captain Logan told you to jump off a bridge, and they'd be like, okay, that's faulty logic, because jumping off a bridge is very different from just typing Spatula City, okay? We're gonna be okay. No one's gonna die from typing.
Also, if Captain Logan told me to jump off a bridge to prove I'd listen to the end of a video, of course I'd do it. Why is there a question?
That proved it. Eric got all the way to the end. He's in the water now. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. We sure appreciate it. And we will see you again next time talking about something else. Eric and I are gonna do a new series pretty soon, talking about a couple of TV shows. And we will eventually start doing some more Netflix roulette, because we really want to do that. But I have been forever trying to get Eric to watch Deep Space Nine, and he has forever been trying to get me to watch Babylon 5. So we're gonna watch both of them
at the same time,
or at least I'm gonna watch his show and he's gonna watch my show.
Yeah,
and we're gonna.
I was thinking, because when I originally pitched this to you, because we were just kind of talking about it, and I was like, what if we just do a show where we watch both of them? And I watch one and you watch the other, and then we try to have a coherent conversation. I'm probably going to rewatch the B5 episodes before we talk, just so I can remember what you're talking about.
I'll probably do the same thing, honestly. Yeah. We're going to call that show Deep Space Babylon 59.
I like that you're making the announcement for a new show at the end of this podcast that no one made it to the end of.
Yeah, well, I just thought that would be absolutely hilarious. So for the 3 people listening, they're going to get to know this. It's like Patreon.
It's like Patreon embedded within a podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for your support. Anyway.
You know who's going to get to the end of this video? Steve. Steve's going to get to the end of the video.
Steve's going to write Cattle Prod Spatula City.
Can't wait for Deep Space Babylon 59.
Oh, thanks for listening. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Eric.
See you later.